The JF-17 program has come of age and it's not stopping as we speak. May it be the upgrade in the Block 3 of the KLJ-7A ESA radar. Speaking of the engine itself, the WS-13 is an upgrade of the RD-93 which is presently there. The operational capability of the JF-17 is also proven by the UAV that was shot down in the Balochistan province of Pakistan. The weapon integration of the Tejas is not up to the mark in relation to the JF-17. The JF-17 provides the right capability at the right price. Tejas is a confused aircraft with zero clarity of the market segment it is targeting. The Malaysian deal, which probably will fall through with the JF-17, Tejas is nowhere to be found. The JF-17 deal with Malaysia will materialize and it will open up avenues to other countries like Azerbaijan, Argentina, as well as the North African regions of Egypt, as well as other countries. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you back to another episode. Today is going to be a discussion that dictates the future potential of fighter aircrafts in the region and the world. Let's make a mention of a press clipping that came in the Korean print media. It related to the LCA acquisition of Malaysian Air Force, a lead-in fighter trainer that is required by them to ensure their continuity of operations. They have specifically mentioned two finalists, one the JF-17 Thunder and the second FA-50 Fighting Eagle. These two aircrafts come with a price tag and associated numbers that are well within the reach of any country in the world. LCA is nowhere on the cards as of now. Yes, there is a mention that there is a probable team coming across from Malaysia to India to have a look at the possibility, but I certainly believe it is more to do with a political ploy than anything that is practical on ground. There are a lot of shortcomings in the program that we have discussed previously, but I would also like to say that FA-50 itself has its limitations attached. The FA-50 is a mix between the Lockheed Martin and the local KAI platform. They have come together, generated a decent aircraft, but a lot of other things go in favor of the JF-17. We are going to discuss in detail these two aircrafts and touch upon the LCA as well. Some bit of history from where the JF-17 program has evolved, starting from meager beginnings of the Sabre 2 platform to the Super 7, then the FC-1 and the final product being the JF-17 Block 1. Obviously, we're looking at Block 3 coming up in this year, the present year 2021, and obviously the evolution that came along with it. The intent initially was to generate a fighter aircraft that was able to replace the aging fleet of the F-7s as it was taking its toll, then the A-5 as well. But what is important to see is not the past but the future. Where is it heading? Where is it as we speak? And where does it turn out to be in the years to come? If we are looking at where we stand today, we're expecting the Block 3. But what happened on 27th February was not a Block 3. It was a Block 2 which was utilized both in the air-to ground standoff weapon capability platform as well as the air-to-air probable engagement capability. It was once again a situation which were extremely dynamic. There were locks taking place from our side of the border to the adversary towards the eastern side. There were only 2 aircraft shot down at that time by the Pakistan Air Force One, Wing Commander Abhinandan, the MiG-21 Bison, as well as the Su-30 on the other side of the fence. The escalation ladder could have risen so fast, so quick, that the nuclear threshold could have been touched at that point in time. Better sense prevailed. The leadership of the Air Force as well as the nation opted not to shoot down more than 2 aircrafts. Rumored about 9 different targets were being engaged and clearances required to launch missile off rails to shoot down the adversary. But once again, 2 aircrafts, nothing more. Overall, the JF-17 program has come of age, and it's not stopping as we speak. May it be the upgrade in the Block 3 of the KLJ-7A ESA radar. Speaking of the engine itself, the WS-13 is an upgrade of the RD-93, which is presently there, which is having 0.95 thrust to weight ratio, whereas the newer version will have a 1.10. That's a big number. That will obviously generate enough thrust to weight ratio to incorporate or carry the PL-15 as well, the longer stick missile that is being talked of. It is also known as the Thunderbolt 15, which has approximate ranges of 300 odd kilometers, give or take a few. On the other side, we also have its speed capability enhanced. Instead of a 1.6, it's doing a Mach 2. It is supposed to be a bit large in size as well, greater wingspan, greater length, to also incorporate greater weapon capability. May it be the standoff or may it be the conventional. Another important aspect that is a plus point of the Block 3, the finances that it requires for a single unit. It's about $25 to $30 million. Whereas, as we had compared before, about $95 million for a Rafale and 40 plus for a Teja aircraft. Whereas the capability that the JF-17 Block 3 or the program holds with itself is been war proven since a decent time, even before 27th February, where it was utilized in an air-to ground role in the west of Pakistan, south, north Waziristan, where miscreants were targeted by LGB weapons by the JF-17 fleet as well. The present time where we stand today, we have a total of 100 plus JF-17s in service in Pakistan. There are pilots undergoing training from Nigeria within Pakistan, and their acquisition is taking place. Presently, I understand it's a meager number of 3 aircraft, but it has potential to expand. Myanmar presently is using 16 JF-17s in their air effort. Potential export possibilities include countries like Azerbaijan, Iraq, Egypt, Argentina, which was recently also mentioned in the international media that they've left the British option and opted for the JF-17 because of, once again, the economics involved. Some discussion that was there beforehand related that the aircraft or the Thunder is a Chinese product. I would beg to differ. My reasons are extremely logical. The pilots who have gone ahead and generated the ergonomics of the cockpit itself are Pakistani. The engineers who have worked on the program itself are Pakistani. The requirement of the aircraft for the purpose it was built is Pakistani. So it's all in relation to what we had to offer ourselves, as I mentioned before, to replace the F7s and the A5s. And obviously now the roles are being moved ahead as well into conventional as well as nuclear capabilities as well. So it's all within the state of Pakistan. Another question that was doing circles in the social and the print media was that why China is not using this aircraft, or why have they not acquired for their own PLAF. They are having a lot of aircraft in their inventory doing the same multi roles which the JF-17s can perform. May it be the air-to-air intercept capability, air-to-ground weapon delivery, ISR, or EW. They have their own pluses going for them. If I talk of numbers, the Chinese Air Force is presently holding 3,300 plus aircraft in its inventory, out of which 2,500 are combat ready. They don't require this aircraft for the purpose that it is built. So it's a Pakistani platform made for Pakistan with a lot of export potential. The operational capability of the JF-17 is also proven by the UAV that was shot down in the Balochistan province of Pakistan. This was an incursion from the western border. The aircraft took off from an operational base in the heart of the night, reached the target zone or target area, engaged the UAV, shot it down and recovered back. The wreckage fell within the land or the airspace of Pakistan. The JF-17 was also utilized in, as I mentioned before, the 27th Feb skirmish in 2019. It was in the A2 ground role with the REKs on board, standoff weapon capability utilized, as well as the A2 air as well. And we have had success in both using the PL-12 SD-10 BVR missile, or may it be the PL-52E. It is once again being utilized in Pakistan as well as abroad very successfully. Talking of the JF-17's export potential, the business or the sales which are generated are on a few specific aspects, and we'll discuss them one by one and relate them and reason them with the present fighter aviation domain. First of all, the market itself. This aircraft is made for the countries which are not able to procure high-end or very expensive weapons, meaning thereby the Rafale that I've mentioned before, $95 million, a price tag per unit, is a rather hefty affair. And obviously to have an aircraft and to maintain it is a separate domain. The supply chain or the logistics that come along with it, it's a challenging affair, as well as the back shops that are required to maintain yet again the aircraft, another problem area. Number two, the price itself is extremely reasonable for the services that it provides. The ideal phrase for the JF-17, it is the greatest bang for the buck that you spend for acquiring, and obviously the system itself, it is extremely potent and a very reasonable price tag as well. Number three, the customers that we are looking at. We obviously are not looking for countries which have a huge GDP going for them, a lot of finances, a lot of capital exchanging hands. We are looking for countries or the buyers which cannot afford the high-end and the expensive fighter aircrafts, which are once again potent, yes, but very challenging to maintain. Number four, the transport of the product. The JF-17 was transported through an IL-78 aircraft from the Pakistan Air Force. So it is very comfortable to be pushed across the world or transported globally to be available to whichever country that is required. Number five, the services provided. If you look at the human capital being trained within Pakistan with regard to the customers that the JF-17 has, is, as we speak, underway. as well as the after sale maintenance support is also a well covered domain, and it is going to ensure a continued supply chain for the aircraft and the system itself. In the print media, there has been a mention of why the LCA is not as good as the JF-17 on an export potential basis. We're going to look at a few points one by one. These points have been taken by a write-up that's been done by Abhijit Iyer Mitra, who's a senior fellow and a researcher on international affairs. And this is not too far back, 2020 December, if I'm not wrong, is where this mention took place. The weapon integration of the Tejas is not up to the mark in relation to the JF-17. The JF-17 has a high supply chain strength. There is a Security Council veto that is available with the Chinese. The JF-17 provides the right capability at the right price. Tejas is a confused aircraft with zero clarity of the market segment it is targeting. The JF-17 Block 1 and 2, yes, reasonably modest aircraft, but the Block 3 is going to push it up a notch and come into the pretext of being compared into a fourth generation aircraft. Hence, it is a solid, combat proven and a mature system. Tejas is a mix and match of different components, may it be the avionics, the weapons or the radar or the engines. So it does not generate buyer or purchaser's confidence. The JF-17 re-export of the radar, avionics and the weapons is cleared by the Chinese for every country or any third party for that matter. Where else, on the other hand, the Tejas will face issues in re-export, may it be in the form of clearances from the source origins. That is a challenging affair. The Tejas themselves do not have a major operator. Comparing the Tejas within the Indian Air Force, negligible, whereas the Pakistan Air Force is presently using 100 plus JF-17s as we speak. To conclude, the JF-17 is ready, able and willing to engage any domain of air power doctrine, whereas the Tejas is left wanting in that domain. The Malaysian deal, which probably will fall through with the JF-17, Tejas is nowhere to be found. The FA-50 is a credible opponent in this domain or in this race. The Fighting Eagle has its limitations, as we've mentioned. So as per the contemporary analysis, the JF-17 deal with Malaysia will materialize, and it will open up avenues to other countries like Azerbaijan, Argentina, as well as the North African regions of Egypt, as well as other countries.